Good day, ma'am. Good day, classmates. My name is Jay Milihor, and I'm one of the reporters of Group 3, and we are going to report about Response Memorandum. First, what is the objective of a Response Memorandum? The objective of a Response Memorandum is to satisfy the reader with an answer or action that fulfills the request of an inquiry. For example, in a business, responding to the messages of the customers are very important to show that you care about their questions and also to build a strong relationship to your customers. The answer either informs the reader of the respondent's ability to provide information or of a willingness to act on their behalf in some other way. So in responding also, your answer should be specific and brief. So for example, if you are working in a company and your supervisor asks you to research a new regulation that may apply to the company, the first thing you need to do is to do a research and study the regulation that fits or suitable to your company, and then after that you will write a response memo that will restate the question and then answer the questions in detail. Since a response memo is a direct follow-up method of communication to a question, it is necessary for a memo to begin by stating the original question or paraphrasing the initial problem and continuing by answering it immediately. Next is how to write a response memo. The first step is to review the original. And reviewing the original, the first thing is you must read carefully. Before responding to a memo, it is essential to read it and make sure that you understand the entire content. Understanding the content helps you on how or what would you respond to a particular question. This will help you respond accurately in a way that benefits the receiver, and also find out the purpose of the memo and what information the sender needs. The next is to gather the required information. Look for ways to provide the appropriate response to the memo you receive. If you do not have information handy, you might need to do extensive research before stating your response. If you are not qualified to give out such information, forward the memo to the appropriate person. So for example, the letter may be asking for a status of a job interview. If you are not connected with the hiring process, call the hiring manager to check the application status before responding. And the next step is to draft your response or drafting your response. And the first is use a polite salutation. When constructing your response, use a courteous salute. A suitable salutation is "Dear" followed by the individual's name. It is important that your greeting is personal to show the person you care about and note their issue. For example, if you know the person, you will put there "Dear Mr." and the name of the person. Or for example, the person has a title on their name. You may use it like, for example, Dr. Johnson. Dear Dr. Johnson. And the next is to state the purpose of your memo. In your first paragraph, go straight to the point. State that you are responding to their memo and be as direct as possible. Answer every question in detail and provide all necessary information the individual has asked for. And if ever you cannot answer their question or request, plainly state it without mincing words, or do not add more words. Just direct to your point and apologize for not being able to provide them with the information they require. And the next is express gratitude for their time. Thank the sender for writing you, even if you cannot answer their issues or requests. You need to acknowledge or appreciate the time of the sender in sending his or her questions or request. And lastly, sign off with your name and title or position. A formal complimentary clause will suffice. The most appropriate forms to use are "yours certainly" or "yours faithfully." Like what we see in the closing part of our letter, I will put there "certainly yours" or "yours certainly" and after your name. Yours certainly, J. Milihor. And that's all for the objective and on how to write a response memo. May I call on Ms. Tia Cano for the continuation of our report.
Here are the tips in writing response memorandum. First, use a professional tone. The tone is an essential part of any communication activity. The tone of a message reflects the author and influences how the reader perceives the message. If the tone makes the content unclear, confusing, or offensive, your reader won't be able to understand or respond to your text properly. So when you write, you need to learn how to adapt your tone depending on what you're writing. Write clearly and concisely. Writing clearly and concisely means choosing your words deliberately and precisely. Why should my writing be clear and concise? To be effective in your communication, you need to keep your audience's attention, and one way to keep and capture their interest is to write in a style that is both clear and concise. And to achieve that, you need to write in simple terms, do not use complex vocabulary, and it would be best if you write shorter sentences. Next is keep it short. Go straight to the point and proffer solutions to the sender's problem, answer questions, and provide the necessary information as the case may be. You have to respond to it briefly and straight to the point, and avoid using flowery language and unnecessary details for your readers not to be confused. And lastly, proofread your memo. Before you release or send the memo, you should make it sure that it has been proofread to ensure that it is free of any problems in terms of its content, grammar, or spelling. You may also want to review it to see if there is a way for you to simplify it further to make it more easily understood by your audience. Or you might want to use a spell checker to help you find errors and fix them. The purpose and the parts of response memorandum. The purpose of this memo is to provide the audience with the desired information. Response memo has 4 parts. The purpose statement. It explains why you are writing this memo. The summary. This section is to summarize the specific topic and the goal of the document. The discussion. It tackles what the topic all about and giving perspective on the idea given. And last will be the action. This is where you should describe what you are doing to help solve the problem.
Good day! Before I will start my discussion, let me introduce myself first. So, I am Leslie L. Brianas. So now, let's discuss the format or the structure of response memo. So, there are 8 sections in this memo. So, first is the word to. It provides the name and titles of everyone who will receive your memo. Second is from. Provide your complete name and title. The third one is the date. Provide the complete and the accurate date. And don't forget to include the year. The fourth one is subject. In this section, we need to capitalize all the letters because this section is very important in the part of a memo. So subject, provide a brief yet specific description of what the memo is all about. And the fifth one is purpose. So what is the purpose of this certain memo? And the sixth one is the summary. Summary is the portion of the memo the writer uses to draw attention to any research or information that is relevant to accomplishing the prior proposed task. The second to the last is discussion. This discussion section of your memo is where you tell the reader what your conclusion is to the legal question posed in the question presented and where you expand on your brief answer to support your conclusion. And the last one is action, the action section. So in this section it's all about what is your response in this memo, or what should you do with response in this memo. So we hope that you clearly understand the format or the structure of a response memo. So now, let's see some example of a response memo. So let me read. Memorandum to Design Team number 362 from Tw3 Working. Date May 27, 2001. Subject Project Schedule. Purpose This memo responds to your request to move the weekly meeting from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Summary This request is satisfactory as long as it is approved by management. Discussion Individual time changes in meetings are usually accepted by management as long as meeting minutes are submitted to Mitch by noon. Lastly, action. I asked Mitch if she thought this would be a problem, and she said no. So all we need to do now is get Mr. Antonio Lim's approval. So that's all our report, and God bless.